Alrighty, so today we're going to talk about the LA Galaxy in the Moving Forward series episode, and this has been a weird season for the LA Galaxy because, at least for the first third of the season, it looked very similar to what we saw in 2021, where they got off to a good start and people were thinking that they are definitely back and being an MLS Cup contender, and then they just absolutely collapse in the second half of the season to a point where they miss out on the playoffs on the final day of the season, whereas this year it kind of accelerated where they got off to a good start in the beginning and then they kind of crater in a big way to a point by the time the calendar hit July. There was a lot of discontent in the Galaxy fan base and a lot of people were calling for Greg Vanney's head. But as we look at the final third of the season, they really kind of got better to a point where they started to kind of shape up a decent core that could actually work out to be a team that could be a regular playoff contender or even be an MLS Cup contender. Now, obviously, a lot of that has to do with the fact that they definitely made some big move, and a certain guy called Ricky Puig definitely arrived with the Galaxy that definitely creates some more attacking threat for this Galaxy team besides Chicharito, and not to mention the defense got a little bit better compared to previous season. But obviously, I know Galaxy fans are still going to be very frustrated of how it ended, because the way that this season ended in the playoffs was pretty much the same as what we saw in 2019, which is getting eliminated by their intercity rival LAFC. Now, in terms of the season itself, they finished with 14-8-12 record and finished with 50 points. They scored 58 goals this season, which, again, this has always been a team that's known to score a ton of goals. But one of the things that I'm definitely interested to look at is the goals allowed that they had. 51 goals allowed this season, which, again, that still is a little bit high, I would say, for a playoff team. But consider previous Galaxy team that has just have some woeful defense, I think there is definitely some slight improvement in terms of that. And then they have a positive goal differential of +7. They finished 4th in the Western Conference, which is the highest that they finish in the standings in what seems like for a long time now. I mean, the early days of the Galaxy, and especially during the peak of the Galaxy in the late 2000s and the 2010s, always finished like first and second in the Western Conference. But this is really the first time we have seen them actually finish around those spots in what has been a long time, because of a steep decline that this club has been suffering in the late 2010s and now into the 2020s. Now, they, as I mentioned, got eliminated by LAFC in the second round, and Galaxy fans are going to be even more frustrated at the fact that they saw their intercity rival winning their first MLS Cup. Although, unlike how I said about NYCFC winning MLS Cup, and that Red Bulls fan not only are going to be very upset about that, but they're going to have to hear from their intercity rival talk about how they won an MLS Cup, and yet they still are empty-handed in terms of that, even though they've been in the league longer. At least I would say Galaxy fans don't have to suffer that, because I think Galaxy fans will still kind of brag about the fact that you won one. That's great, but we still have 5, and we still have the most MLS Cup out of any team in the league, and that I think that probably won't change for a long time, especially when you look at the next team that have won the most MLS Cup, that is DC United at 4 MLS Cup. I don't think DC will be threatening the Galaxy in terms of maybe getting a 5th star in their name and their 5th MLS Cup. So at least they still can hang on to the fact that they have won more MLS Cup than anybody in league history. But in terms of the top goal scorer, you got Chicharito, unsurprisingly, being the top goal scorer. Another fantastic season with 18 goals. Followed by Dejan Joveljic, a guy that really kind of came out of nowhere to really be the guy that, he was kind of one of the big early answer in terms of finally be that number 9 that the Galaxy have been looking for a long time in order to ease off the low on Chicharito with 11 goals. And also a guy that has really become probably the best super sub in this league last season, with him just scoring goals every time when he came off the bench. And then you got a disappointing Douglas Costa, despite the fact that he's been a huge flop. He still ends up with 4 goals, followed by Efrain Alvarez with 3 goals and Gaston Bergman with 3 goals. Now, top assist leader, you got Julian Araujo, who has been linked with some big move in Europe recently with 9 assists, followed by Efrain Alvarez with 6 assists, Raheem Edwards with 6 assists, Samuel Grandsir with 5 assists, and Ricky Puig, with 5 assists. But he probably would have been the top assist leader if he actually arrived in this team, not in the summer transfer window, because what Ricky Puig did to that midfield is something is kind of something that not only they were hoping to do, but then it was some, and that kind of perfectly transitioned in terms of talk about the highlights of this team. They really hit a gem in Ricky Puig, and this is not a big surprise because there's a reason why Ricky Puig was considered to be the next Xavi when he decided to or when he broke out of the La Masia academy, and he basically was playing regular minutes with Barcelona. But of course, as we all know, things of course didn't work out for him to a point where this was kind of the next best move for him to come to MLS, maybe develop his career, and eventually get another shot in Europe. And boy, he's definitely taking it seriously. Like the way that he's been performing, I won't be surprised in a year or two we're going to see a lot of European team that is looking to try to get Ricky Puig, and not just any European team, but probably big name European team because of the profile that Ricky Puig has, and also not to mention the resume of him coming out of the famed La Masia Academy. There's going to be big clubs that I think is going to try to get his service. As I mentioned, Dejan Joveljic playing the Elsinio role with mastery. I mean, I talked about the Elsinio role a couple of times, with the fact that it feels like, if there was an award in MLS where, they award the best super sub in the year, which I feel like that should be a new award. Like, I feel like that would be a great award in terms of awarding guys that maybe won't get regular minutes, but guys will always come off the bench and deliver, and Dejan Joveljic delivered that, and then some. I mean, it was getting to a point where Galaxy fans were just kind of befounded by the fact that Vanny keep putting Chicharito as the number 9, even though Chicharito kind of struggled at time, and Joveljic was like the guy that was scoring the goals, especially late in the game. But, as the season goes along, I think you could safely say that, I would say that Joveljic has been able to play some of the games as a starter, and I kind of don't feel like he was as effective as a starter as him coming off the bench, which maybe that's kind of the reason why Vanny decided to keep him off the bench instead of just what many Galaxy fans wanted to see, which is him playing in the starting 11 from day in and day out. And then, of course, the other thing that was a highlight was another career season for Chicharito. I mean, 18 goals this season, you can't complain. Playing about how even though he is starting to kind of wind down his career, he is still banging in the goals, and he is still probably one of the most important attacking pieces for this LA Galaxy team. Now, in terms of talk about some of the lowlights, we got to get to talk about the Chris Klein situation. Obviously, from what we heard recently with the Galaxy supporter group decided to boycott attending games because of the Chris Klein extension. And not to mention, this is something not overnight. This has been brewing for the past couple of years, where there has been a lot of discontent between the Galaxy fan base and Chris Klein, and that there's been a lot of Chris Klein out kind of chant for the past couple of years, and that I even mentioned before when he decided to break the rules in terms of some of the roster moves, similar to what we saw Inter Miami broke, and that they of course got fined and got some sanction. That was really the last straw for Galaxy fans. Like, that was really the last straw, to a point where they simply cannot accept that Chris Klein is still their GM. And again, there's going to be definitely some pressure on this front office to address this, especially with the way that, if the Galaxy supporter group are going to follow up with what they're going to do, which is boycotting every game that they're not going to attempt, because as long as Chris Klein is still the GM of this team. The Chicharito fail Panenka against Sporting KC. Now, normally I don't usually put a single moment as part of the lowlights in the moving forward series, but I feel like that moment has to be on there. I mean, you talk about one of the most embarrassing moment in MLS history, and also, again, this is the reason why when you, of course, trying to attempt a Panenka, you got to make sure that you convert that, because if you don't convert it, or in the case of what Chicharito decided to do here, yeah, you're going to get a lot of shame, and a lot of people that's going to be mad at you of why you even tried to attempt that, especially with the way that that was during a game where the Galaxy could have won the game. Like, they could have won the game if Chicharito doesn't get too cute there. But instead, he decided to get too cute, and yeah, it cost them points, or it cost them the win in that game. And that yeah, as much as Chicharito had a great season, yeah, I think that moment is going to be maybe one that's going to be highlighted as just a season where I have no idea why Chicharito decided to do that, and it's going to kind of stay. It's going to be used that as kind of almost an outlier. That the fact that he scored 18 goals, but remember that stupid moment where he decided to try a Panenka against Sporting KC? Yeah, we definitely remember that moment. And then of course the defense. Again, as much as I have said that it has improved a bit this season, it can still be iffy at times, and we have seen before where their defense. There's been times where they have gone back to the classic Galaxy defense, which is just kind of a turnstile at the back at times. Team had no problems in terms of breaking them down, and again, as the season goes along, it got much more solid. It's still not at a rate where I would say that it could be a defense that I trust that could potentially be an MLS Cup contender, and again, that is something that I know Galaxy front office is trying to address for the past couple of years. Like, again, it is still kind of befounded the fact that despite the fact that whatever the Galaxy have tried to do to fix the back line, it just have not really quite worked with any efficiency. And now it seems like their latest move of decided to get Chris Mavinga as part of their option at the back. I mean, again, I don't know if that's going to work out, especially the fact that I mentioned with Mavinga. He might be a great serviceable center back if this was maybe like 5 years ago, but nowadays, no. He has really not been the same ever since he suffered multiple injuries that has really kind of killed what looked like was a promising career with TFC a couple of years ago. Now, in terms of MVP and revelation, this was actually kind of tough to choose because, I could have easily gone with Chicharito being the star man, or even gone with Ricky Puig, who has really changed the way how the Galaxy attack and just almost are like a magician in that midfield. But in the end, I got to go with Dejan Joveljic, and that, again, the way that there's times where he has single-handedly carried this team on his back coming off the bench, and has even at times when I know there are some games where the Galaxy eventually do lose by a goal or two, at least Dejan Joveljic is giving them a chance, and that's all you can ask for a player that I know that he's probably very frustrated the fact that he's not getting regular minutes, despite the fact that he's putting ridiculous number that you would say that is definitely a number that should be rewarded by being in the starting 11. I mean, heck, he even openly said it in one of the interview during this season that he was not happy with the way that he's been putting on the bench and coming off the bench every single game. But as long as he continued to score, as long as he continued to be effective as a super sub, I think the Galaxy will be happy about that, and especially with Greg Vanny, he'll be happy to see that, even if there's some Galaxy fans are probably not thinking that is the case. But again, he really kind of low off the shoulder of Chicharito, and especially, again, there was time where when Chicharito was struggling, especially in the middle of the season, he was literally the only guy on this team that can score the goals. Now, in terms of disappointment, I mean, I don't even need to say who is the biggest disappointment. I'm pretty sure every Galaxy fans can agree that Kevin Cabral is probably one of the most disappointing player probably for the past couple of years. Like, if you want to talk about some of the worst designated player in the league, and one name that I can mention straight away is Akeloba from Nashville SC, or even in some extent Franco Jara with FC Dallas. But Kevin Cabral, man, yeah, he is definitely going to go down as one of the biggest DP busts, and one of a player that, again, when they decided to sign him, it was kind of weird because with the way that he didn't really look that good during his time in his native country in France, in Ligue 2, and the fact that they decided to think that, maybe they see something that this kid, of course, can bring to the table. And to Kevin Cabral defense, I think there's times where he has been able to show that flashes of brilliance, and the fact that, in terms of the movement and him getting into a good spot, he's done a very good job in terms of that. The problem is that he can't finish. Or when it gets to like the vital moment when he need to be show his cool and collect the heads to basically slot a chance away, he can't do that. And it was getting to a point where I think, this is a classic example of what happened when a number 9 gets into a funk, and Kevin Cabral was definitely in a very bad flunk, to a point where he just kind of lost all confidence. And you saw it throughout the season when he eventually kind of had his minutes window down, that he just lost all confidence whatsoever, and he just looked like a player that is shell of his old self. Which is why, I feel like, as much as I know the Galaxy did try to give him a second chance this season. I mean, the first chance that they gave him in last season, there was already a lot of people that's been calling for his head, and they want him or they want the Galaxy to get rid of him because he has already turned into a bust. Yeah, they did give him a second chance, and yeah, the second chance hasn't really go well. And now we'll see whether or not if he does well now in a new environment with the Colorado Rapids, because sometimes as a number 9 you just need a change of scenery. You just need a new environment to maybe put the pressure off the fact that you maybe will not have to always heavily be the guy that will be criticized if you're not able to put away the chances. But that being said, it'll be also interesting to see how he does with the Rapids, and especially with the way that, I feel like the Galaxy are very thankful that the Rapids took that DP tag off of him. And even though they are still paying some of the contract, I think they're glad that at least that opens a DP spot, and that, again, the Galaxy has a couple of very bad contract, and especially I think when you look at the designated player label that they have, besides Chicharito, the other 2 DP that they had are among some of the worst in the league right now, and at least they of course were able to offload one of them. Now, moving forward for this team, what's the front office response going to be after the Galaxy supporter group have openly pressured the front office and demanding them to let go of Chris Klein, or else they're going to be boycotting 10 games. And again, it'll be interesting to see whether they do stick to their words that they are going to be boycotting some of these games, and that we'll see whether if the front office do really care, because it's not a good look if you have your supporter group basically calling you out. And I always love when a team has a front office that are willingly really put trust in the supporter group and don't kind of clash with each other. And when that of course happens, then it can definitely create some poisonous kind of environment, even in the overall game atmosphere. Like, the supporter group is what brings the noise in games, so it's gonna be very strange to see them not being there. And that, again, we'll see whether or not if Chris Klein is going to let go, even though he has signed that contract extension. And that, again, from what I've already heard from Galaxy fans, they really hate him, and rightfully so. He hasn't really done a lot of things to this team. In fact, he's really kind of single-handedly kind of make this team worse for the past couple of years, and one of the biggest mastermind of the big decline that this Galaxy team has suffered in the past couple of years. And then I feel like the core has started to form in terms of the attack in the midfield again. When you look at this midfield, it's really kind of stacked with the likes of Bergman, Alvarez, and even, or not Alvarez, I'm sorry, Ricky Puig being in there. And then going forward on the attack, they have 2 decent number 9 in Chicharito and Dejan Joveljic. And even at the back, especially the fullbacks, I mean, the likes of Julian Araujo, one of the best fullbacks in the leagues. And I think he's second behind Kai Wagner in terms of the most assists for a fullbacks this season. Yeah, they're definitely started to shape up a decent core that could be a contender for the next couple of years. But that being said, I feel like they definitely need to still address some issue in terms of the fact that, well, one of the issue that they need to address, or actually, before I talk about that, they actually have an open DP spot because of the fact that Kevin Cabral is no longer with this team, which is kind of funny to say, because for a long time we always kind of criticized the Galaxy of maybe kind of breaking the rules with the DP spot, and especially from what we saw a couple of years ago with them somehow finding a loophole to sign Christian Pavone on a TAM contract, even though all points are saying that shouldn't be allowed, and he should have been a DP player, even though he's He's on loan. And speaking of Christian Pavone, that could be a player that I think they could be bringing back, because I think the wing area is one of the weaknesses that the Galaxy might have, especially if Grandsir is not going to be coming back for this team. I think they might be looking into trying to get Christian Pavone, and especially with the way that Pavone, during his short time with the Galaxy, he really performed well in that spot. So I won't be surprised they might be thinking about bring him back. But there's also another chance where they can get another DP spot. And as I mentioned, even though they got rid of the awful DP contract that Kevin Cabral occupied, they still not have got rid of the awful contract that Douglas Costa currently has. And we'll see whether they're going to buy him down or just simply release him, because, again, you talk about some bad contracts in the league. That is definitely top 5 in terms of one of the worst contract in the league. And I've said it before, when he joined the Galaxy, I was never a big fan of it. I think he was going to be flop because of how much he's been injured, and he's also been a guy that has been having some attitude problem, and it should be to nobody's surprise that of course is the case. I mean, besides him scoring some wonderful free kick goals, he has really not offered too much for this Galaxy team, and deserve at any point to be labeled as a designated player for this team. But either way, hope you guys enjoy this video. If you do, make sure you guys do a like, smash the subscribe button. As always, if you're a Galaxy fan, what do you think are some of the highlights, the lowlights, the MVP revelation, disappointment, and moving forward, how is this team going to look heading into next season? But until then, hope you guys enjoy this video. If you do, make sure you guys do a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.